Fashion history holds some wild surprises, like how a single orange dress from feudal Japan caused as much cultural shock as Alexander McQueen's most controversial runway shows. Let me tell you why this matters.
Well, that's fascinating. What's the connection between these seemingly different fashion moments?
So here's the thing, when we look at these Japanese robes from the 18th and 19th centuries, particularly the Kosode, they were basically the punk rock of their time. The merchant class was using these elaborate designs to subtly thumb their nose at social restrictions, kind of like how McQueen would later challenge fashion norms in the 90s.
That's really interesting about the social rebellion aspect. How exactly did they get away with it?
Well, they were incredibly clever about it. You know how McQueen would hide controversial messages in his designs? These merchants would use incredibly intricate techniques in specific colors, like that striking vermilion orange, to make statements while technically staying within the rules. The artisans became masters of this subtle subversion.
That's exactly like what happened with McQueen's 1998 collection at London Fashion Week, isn't it? The way he pushed boundaries while working within the fashion system.
Right, and what's really wild is when you look at these Chinese figurines from the 8th to 13th centuries, they show us that this kind of fashion rebellion has been happening for over 1,000 years. These tiny sculptures with their flowing robes and incredible detail were basically documenting the fashion influencers of their time.
Oh, wow. So you're saying these ancient pieces were like the Instagram of their era?
Yeah, in a way. And what's particularly fascinating is how the British Fashion Council has documented this through line of rebellion in fashion. Like, they've got this incredible archive showing how designers like McQueen were actually building on this ancient tradition of using clothing as social commentary.
Well, that really makes me think about how we preserve these fashion moments today. How do you see this evolution continuing?
So here's what's really exciting. We're now using advanced imaging technology to study these historical pieces in ways that weren't possible before. We can analyze the exact construction methods of both ancient robes and McQueen's pieces, creating this amazing digital archive that connects centuries of fashion innovation.
You know what's really striking about all this? The way these seemingly different fashion moments are actually part of one continuous conversation.
Exactly, and what makes it even more interesting is how these historical pieces continue to influence modern designers. Like, you can see echoes of those ancient flowing robes in contemporary collections, but now designers have this incredible digital archive to draw from and reinterpret.
It's such a powerful point about how technology is changing our understanding of fashion history.
And here's what I think is the most fascinating part. Whether we're looking at an 18th century Japanese robe or a McQueen runway piece, we're seeing this constant tension between tradition and innovation. It's like this ongoing dialogue that keeps evolving but never really ends.
Deep in the darkest parts of our oceans, there's a creature that puts on light shows that would make Broadway jealous, and it's changing everything we thought we knew about deep-sea survival.
Well, that's fascinating. What kind of creature are we talking about here?
These remarkable beings called siphonophores, and specifically the crystal siphonophore, which produces its own bioluminescent light show at depths where sunlight never reaches. We're talking about 2,000 feet below the surface.
So how exactly does this underwater light show work?
You know how we use flash grenades in tactical situations? Well, these creatures have evolved their own version when threatened. They release this brilliant burst of blue light that completely disorients any predators. It's like having a built-in emergency escape system.
That's incredible. Nature really does come up with the most ingenious solutions.
Oh, but here's what's really mind-blowing. These bioluminescent defenders, the Friligalma vitiasi, are only about 2 inches long, yet they're found worldwide at depths between 200 to 700 meters. Like, imagine having that kind of impact at that size.
Well, that makes me wonder, do all these deep-sea creatures use light as a defense mechanism?
Actually, that brings us to one of the most fascinating specimens, the spaghetti siphonophore, which took a completely different evolutionary path. Instead of fancy light shows, this species basically decided to become living pasta.
Now, you've got my attention. How exactly does a marine creature end up looking like pasta?
So the Bathyphysa conifera, that's its scientific name, grows up to 2 meters long and literally looks like a massive tangle of living noodles. But here's the clever part. Unlike its relatives, it doesn't even try to swim. It just drifts.
That seems, well, honestly, that seems like a terrible survival strategy.
You'd think so, right? But this passive approach is actually brilliant. It has this specialized buoyant float that keeps it hovering just above the seafloor, while those noodle-like tentacles act as elaborate fishing lines, catching everything from small crustaceans to fish.
So it's basically turned itself into a living fishing net?
Exactly. And get this. These creatures can survive at depths from 200 to 4,000 meters. That's like, the equivalent of stacking 4 Empire State Buildings on top of each other, underwater.
The pressure at those depths must be absolutely crushing.
Well, that's what makes their evolution so remarkable. These creatures have developed completely transparent bodies that can withstand pressures that would crush a submarine. And we're still discovering new species. Just imagine what else might be down there.
So what are the implications of studying these unusual creatures?
The applications are potentially huge. Their bioluminescence mechanisms could revolutionize biotechnology and medical imaging. And those unique buoyancy systems, they might inspire the next generation of underwater vehicles and equipment.
It really makes you think about how much we still have to learn from nature.
The Konark Sun Temple in India draws over 800,000 visitors annually, yet most people don't realize it's part of an ancient tradition of massive temples built to look like divine chariots.
That's fascinating. How did these ancient architects manage to create such complex structures without modern technology?
Well, the engineering is absolutely remarkable. The temple was built in the 13th century using precisely carved sandstone blocks that fit together so perfectly you couldn't slip a knife blade between them. And get this, the wheels of the chariot aren't just decorative, they actually function as sundials.
That reminds me of how the Columbus Monument in Barcelona also pushed architectural boundaries for its time. The way it was integrated into the 1888 Universal Exhibition really showed Barcelona's ambition.
Oh, exactly. And you know what's interesting about that monument? The architect Gayeta Buigas Aymanrava designed it to be exactly 60 meters tall, symbolic of Columbus's journey. It's like these monuments become these incredible time capsules of technological achievement.
So what do you think connects these different cultural expressions across time and space?
Well, I think it's fascinating how they all represent attempts to make permanent something intangible. Like, take the Portuguese-British alliance artwork by Graham Sutherland from 1957. It's trying to capture one of the oldest diplomatic relationships in the world through modern art.
The way these monuments evolve in meaning over time is quite remarkable. The Konark Temple wasn't built to host cultural festivals, but now the annual Konark Festival is this huge celebration of Indian performing arts.
That's such a good point. And you know what's really interesting? These monuments often become more significant over time. The Columbus Monument has become this iconic symbol of Barcelona's identity, way beyond its original commemorative purpose.
Well, that makes me wonder about how future generations might interpret and use these spaces.
You know, that's something I've been thinking about a lot. Like, the Konark Temple has already transformed from a purely religious site to this incredible intersection of spirituality, art, and cultural celebration. And there are similar chariot temples in Hampi and Mahabalipuram that are finding new relevance in different ways.
The way these monuments adapt while maintaining their historical significance is truly remarkable.
Exactly right, and what's particularly fascinating is how they continue to inspire new forms of cultural expression. The way the Konark Temple influences contemporary Indian architecture, or how Sutherland's alliance artwork continues to represent diplomatic relationships, it's all part of this ongoing dialogue between past and present.
And these monuments really seem to anchor communities in ways their creators couldn't have anticipated.
That's so true. And what's really interesting is how they become these living, breathing parts of the cultural landscape. The Konark Festival, for instance, has grown into this internationally recognized celebration that brings together classical dance, music, and cultural performances against the backdrop of this ancient temple.
It's amazing how these structures continue to find new relevance in each generation.
And you know what really strikes me? The way these monuments become more than just tourist attractions, they're like physical anchors for cultural identity and historical memory. Whether it's the Columbus Monument serving as a symbol of Barcelona's cosmopolitan future, or the Konark Temple preserving ancient architectural knowledge while hosting modern cultural events.